rubber meets the road, because an action plan is useless if you're not actually doing it. So if you're on a team, this is, instead of just dreaming about a championship, thinking about, oh, how great it would be, this is where you're getting up early in the morning, or you're staying late after school to hit the practice field, to hit the weight room, and to hone your skills. This is where, if you're an intern and you want to try to discharge a lot of patients, this is where you're actually doing all the things that need to get done. I was a scientist before I was in medical school, and I published a few papers. So this is where, instead of being like, oh, it'd be great to publish, this is where you actually have to do the writing and then do the submitting and submit in the proper format and get all the approvals and whatnot. So this is where, when you're applying to college and you made your action plan, letters of recommendations, transcripts, essays, this is where you're actually checking off those boxes as things get done. Now, if you're not checking off those boxes, it means a couple of things. Now, I didn't write out an action plan when I did the triathlon because it was pretty simple. All I had to do was swim, bike, run. It wasn't rocket science. So, but for some of my other things, like when I applied to medical school, you bet I had a sheet of paper with all those boxes on it. If I wasn't checking off those boxes, I'd have to say to myself, maybe I don't want to be a doctor. You know, doctors work hard, and maybe I didn't want to work that hard, or doctors study a lot. And if I didn't like studying, then, well, maybe I should pick another career. Or if I didn't like, you know, I'm not a professional athlete, so while all this was going on and I was doing all this swimming, biking, and running, I had to work it around my work schedule and my family schedule. So basically what it just meant was not wasting time in front of the TV at night, getting up a little bit early in the morning and doing some swimming, biking, and running. But if I didn't like that, then I'd be like, maybe I should choose a different goal. So this is almost, I almost called this, but it was too much of a cliche, sort of like love the journey. And that's true. I take it, all you guys must love playing soccer. If you're out here playing soccer and practicing, you know, not just playing in games, but doing what you need to do to make the team and to do the best you can during the games. But it's also not just, if your boxes aren't being checked, it also could mean you just don't have the right tools to accomplish your goal. My son was in the Boy Scouts last year for the first time. There was anyone here a Boy Scout or a former Boy Scout? There was something called a boxcar derby, and I had to saw the piece of wood, and I didn't have any of those tools. So I just had to go out and get the tools or borrow the tools. So sometimes you just might not have the tools to check off your boxes, and that's where, again, self-awareness comes in, and you realize, oh, I don't have this tool, I don't have this computer program, or maybe I don't have that skill set yet. Let me go talk to the teacher and develop that skill set, maybe get better at writing. And the last thing I want to talk about with action potentials, if you're not checking off your boxes, it could just be as simple as, I don't have enough time. There's only so many hours in the day. You guys are being pulled in lots of different directions. You have your sports, you have your academics, some of you guys might have jobs, some of you guys might have home responsibilities that are different than other people in your class. You might have to care for someone who's sick or care for a younger sibling. So at the end of the day, if the boxes aren't being checked, you might just have to be like, I don't have enough time. I need to decide what I want to accomplish. I know that was the case in medical school. There's so much material to learn. Someone said, at some point you might just have to decide, I'm going to learn A, B, and C tonight. I'm going to master that material, and whatever I don't learn, so be it. I will master A, B, and C tonight. So we've covered setbacks or opportunities for success. We've covered mind your A's and P's. And I really have to say, just the action potential is the key. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the blood, sweat, and tears come in. TNT, I want you guys to trust in your training. When I was doing that triathlon, after the swim portion, I get on the bike. It's a 13-mile bike ride. Only a couple miles in, my legs are burning. I'm like, how am I going to finish this thing? Well, thankfully, just about a week and a half to 2 weeks before the triathlon, I did my own little triathlon. I couldn't quite stage it the same with the transition zone, but I drove to the gym where I did my swimming, and I swam 500 meters. I drove home, got my bike, and drove to the park where I entered the biking trail, and I biked the 13 miles, put the bike back on my car, drove home, and then I ran the 5K. So when game day came, or race day in my case, my legs are burning. I'm like, oh shoot, what did I get myself? I knew I had the mental fortitude that I can do this. I just did this 2 weeks ago. That's why train for the event. Okay, you guys are soccer players. You're training out there in that field. Now, I'm not that big of a soccer fan, but I know a few set plays. I know about corner kicks. Do your coaches have you practice? Who takes the corner kicks here? Who's actually in the corner? And who's kind of like standing near the goal mouth? Are you guys practicing that? You practice that over and over and over again in practice. Then when it's game time and the game's on the line and you got a corner kick, it should be no big deal. Your heart might be pumping a little faster because it's game time, but you'll know what to do. If you haven't practiced that, well, I don't know about you guys. I'd be, I don't want to use any foul language, but my pants would be brown. But if you practice for the scenario, then it's no big deal. You've done it over and over and over again. You train for the, I know another play is the throw-in from the sidelines. Who throws the ball in from the sidelines here when it goes out of bounds? So you practice it, so it's no big deal. But if you don't practice it, how are you going to do it? Same thing in academic career. I don't care if you're the best radiologist in the world, that's my career. But part of the certification process is a 2-day, 600-question multiple choice exam. How did I practice for that? Did I read radiology books? Oh, I did that during my training, but when it came time to study for the exam, I sat down in front of a computer screen over the course of 2 days, the same sort of time constraints, and I answered 600 questions. And that's what you do. You train for the event. You guys are going to be taking your SATs or ACTs, and later on in life you might be taking other exams to get into law school or medical school. You could be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't train for the event, when you actually get to the event, how do you know if you're going to do it? If you're prepared, it's no big deal. Or if you're prepared and you're like, uh-oh, these questions seem hard to me, but you're like in the back of your mind, I just did real practice exams. I know I can do this. Okay? It'll give you that much more confidence. And this also goes back to setbacks and opportunities for success. If you're going to do real life practice exams in this scenario, then at the end of the exam, most of these programs now, you can see, oh, I need to brush up on this subject or that subject. I need to brush up on my neuroradiology. I would really analyze those, that feedback. And part of trusting your training is to trust your trainers. So, you know, at the very beginning I was talking about how I progressed from, I had to use crutches with the prosthetic leg. And I used rump crutch, and then I used a cane, and then I was able to walk, and then I was able to run, and I put weight on it. Well, that just didn't happen magically. It took a lot of hard work, but I had a physical therapist. She had me doing all these wacky things that I didn't understand. She had me standing on here and with my good leg, put my good leg on like a ball and roll it around. I didn't realize at the time that was to build up my left gluteal muscles, which are really essential for walking. I had no clue about that, but I trusted in her. And she got me, that's like, you guys need to trust your coaches. They have your best interest in heart. You need to trust your teachers. And as you go on through life, you'll choose mentors. And you have to trust your mentors. So, two last things about trusting your training. One is, I don't remember the book, I don't remember the author, but it was written by a Navy SEAL many, many years ago. And he just said, the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat. Just train, 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 and train for the event. Then when you're out there, it's no big deal. Maybe, in fact, your heart rate will stay the same because you've done it all so many times. And one other quick note on trusting your training. A good training technique, and I didn't even realize this, but I was doing this back in high school. To show you what a geek I was applying it to my test. The night before a big test, you know, it's not rocket science. Your teachers aren't here to trick you. If you're studying chemistry and you're studying ionic bonding, you know there's going to be some questions about ions on your test. I would visualize the question in my head and visualize writing the answer down. If you guys play soccer, you could visualize kicking and passing the ball. If you're the goalie, visualizing, making saves. It's a very powerful technique called visualization. Because when you see it in your brain, remember the first part of an action potential is your brain sends the action potential to your muscle. If you already have that memory in your brain, it's that much more efficient. Am I talking too loud? Am I talking too fast for you guys? Okay, because we've covered 3 pillars. SOS, setbacks, opportunities for success. A's and P's, you need an action plan. But that's useless without the action potential. That's really, to me, that's the most important. That's the actual doing. TNT, trusting your training. That gives you so much more confidence when you're out on the race course or you're out on the field or you're sitting in front of a computer screen, because for better or worse, life is a bunch of multiple choice tests now, whether that's a good academic thing or not a good thing. The last thing I want to talk about I call perfection paralysis, or P squared. You don't want to fall victim to perfection paralysis. You don't want to not make a decision and not do anything because you're scared it's not perfect. So I was so proud of myself when I finished that triathlon 7 months, 1 day after my amputation. It almost didn't happen. I was looking for the perfect date. I was looking for, it couldn't be too close to the amputation. I needed time to train, but it couldn't be too far into the winter, then it would be too cold. I needed a flat course. You know, I'm not ready to bike and run uphill with this puppy. I'm a swimmer. I'm not a great swimmer, so I couldn't. Some triathlons are in the ocean where you have to battle the waves. I was looking for a triathlon with the lake. And then lastly, when I pulled up to Egg Harbor Lake the day before the triathlon, the transition area, it was all dirt. And me and my wife were wondering, is the biking going to be on dirt? Thankfully, it wasn't. So I had all these things that I had to kind of like get through. I was looking for the perfect event. I almost didn't even do the event. In business, I'm not a businessman. My father is. And he would say sometimes in life, not making a decision is worse than not making a decision at all. At some point, you have to decide. I think in sports, there might be days when you guys are feeling lousy. You might be tired. You might have other stuff on your mind. The field conditions might not be the best. Your hamstrings might be bothering you. Just got to realize everything in life isn't going to be perfect. You just do the best that you can. I know for the triathlon, and I do stress train for the event, it would have been great if I was a professional athlete and didn't have my other work responsibilities. I would have loved to have mixed in some weight training, really made my triathlon better. And I still try to fit it in. But as we talked about timing, time and the action potentials, sometimes you just don't have enough time. Everything can't be perfect, but you should still plow ahead, and I think you'll be pleased with the results. When I was at MIT as a chemist, when you're in academia, there's an expression for these professors, publish or perish. You got to publish in the scientific journals, otherwise you won't survive at a place like MIT. There was this organic chemistry professor. He wouldn't publish until the whole 15-step synthesis was completely worked out and everything was perfect, so he never published, and he didn't get tenure there. So sometimes other professors would publish what they did have. So when it comes down to perfection paralysis, I said this a few moments ago, I didn't realize until my son was a Boy Scout, this is also the Boy Scout motto, and this is kind of how I lived my life. Just do your best. You don't have to be perfect. If you do your best within the time constraints or whatever other constraints life imposes on you, then you hang your head high at the end. You don't hang your head, you hold your head high at the end of the day. I think I've accomplished a lot in my life, but I've always gone with that motto, just do your best. So I just want to leave you guys. I hope I was able to provide you with some motivation. I'm not letting the amputation slow me down. I still have, this was where my primary disease was, but I still have low deposits of cancer throughout my skeleton. No longer in my lungs though, because we also hacked out my lung, at least the lobe of the lung. But I'm still doing the thing that I like to do, the things that make me happy, and hopefully inspiring people along the way. I don't know if I spoke too fast or too long or too loud. I don't want to keep you guys off the field because that's really where you should be. Just if anybody has any questions, I could answer them. Oh, I see a hand over there. I thought I saw a hand.
Yeah. Do you plan on doing more triathlon?
Yeah, I hope to. That's a great question. So like I said, in 2017, I had the lung surgery. They took out the left upper lobe of my lung. And then in November of that year, so August, September, October, November, 4 months later, I did an 8K or a 5-mile race. Unfortunately, this year, I really had an up and down summer, some adverse effects from the chemo and radiation that I'm doing. But just yesterday morning, I was in the pool. It wasn't a great workout, but I was in there and I was swimming. And next summer, I hope to do another sprint triathlon. And my goal is to take it up to the next level, which is an Olympic length. But like I said, I just do the best I can so that I can hold my head high. And yeah, but that's a great question. Any other questions? I hope you guys found this useful. Okay, great. soccer field and in life, okay?